Joe Kearns. How are we
Hello
doing, mate?
again. Hello again, Matthew. Surviving like yourself out on the bicycle trying to stay fit.
What is the benefit? What's the feeling of going up a brutal hill? What does that do for you?
I think I'm beginning to get addicted to it now. It's the anticipation, the pain, and then the satisfaction afterwards. Yeah.
What are we going to talk about today? What topic have we got?
Well, I think in Ireland, the major thing that happened in recent weeks is that three of the counties of Ireland, Laois, Offaly, and Kildare, had to go into lockdown again because they had a fairly severe outbreak. And that outbreak was traced back to meat factories. So there are quite a few meat factories in the area. And as has happened in many countries, meat factories, by their nature, the way people work, tend to transmit the disease. However, it's also related to the people who work in meat factories. So in Ireland, there was a change in the law last year whereby they allowed asylum seekers who are in a system we call direct provision, whereby they live in a state-funded accommodation and get a slight amount. They could now work. So a lot of these migrant workers, they got jobs in the meat factories. And they could be from any background. We've talked about it before. They could be a surgeon from Damascus who ends up working on a meat line, who might actually turn out to be a wonderful meat worker. But I think the precision is a little...
Slightly
Yeah.
overqualified, but I take your point.
This guy does wonderful work with mutton chops. Yeah. So the tragedy then, of course, is that because it is spread in these meat factories, and a lot of the migrant workers are living in fairly poor accommodation, overcrowded usually. But I have read that is not unusual even among general meat factory workers, whether they are seeking refuge as refugees or not, that the work practices in the meat industry are a little rough, to say the least. So the lockdown happened then. I haven't heard anybody blaming the migrant workers. I think there's a great deal of sympathy for them. Because there is a movement. You have a new government in Ireland, and part of their program for government is to close down the direct provision system to create something new. Nobody expects that's going to happen quickly, but we do have to avoid a sense of blaming the refugees or the asylum seekers for this.
So name some countries. We probably know them, but where were the people who ended up in Ireland? Where were they mainly coming from?
There were quite a few from Syria, quite a few from African countries as well. We tend to get quite a mixture.
Okay.
Like if you go to Greece, you tend to get them from fairly limited. We like most countries, you have Afghan and Eritreans as well. Tend to make up a large portion of the migrant community.
I'm off to Germany on Friday. I'm going to a small town in the south of Germany. There are refugees there. They are not allowed to work. The cost of that is their frustration. Some of them are grateful to be in a free country. They want to pay back and they can't. And they want to be a man or a provider, or these whoever want to be credible participants and community citizens, and that robs them of that. And the incidence of racisms and resentment, we're paying for these people, they're having a free ride. The non-working element is very awkward and fuels I'd say it's just a gap and a distance in society. Is that why direct provision came in to make it better? Or what do you feel about that?
The direct provision system was the system whereby they would be paid exactly as you described in Germany. That's what it was. Now, they still have that system where they get accommodation, they get food provided and so on. They get a small allowance, which is really minuscule. But just as you described here, a lot of the migrants were actually suffering from mental health issues because they couldn't work. And the benefit of last year allowing them now to work has been enormous. Even if it is low paid work, it gives them a sense of purpose and pride in getting out of the place and getting to mix with the community. And just like to me, it always seemed like a no-brainer to allow these people to work, because it both benefits society, it removes that stigma of being a freeloader. And as I say, I don't think I haven't read anything which has been a backlash against these. It's just seen as a problem for those three counties.
To be rude, I mean, I'm broadcasting from London, where it was the anti-Polish racism, which is they're stealing our jobs.
Right.
And that's when maybe we focus back into the meat thing. And I'm going to be rude now.
Yeah.
No self-respecting, say, university graduate is going to run towards the meat factory.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
can you see the difference there? That there's
Yes.
probably no competition for that particular role.
Almost certainly, it would not be the best paid work. Though we do have, as you know, the meat industry has different levels of workers because there are a lot of very skilled workers in that profession as well because they have to know what they're doing. I mean, you and me both like our nice cuts of meat and all the rest. I haven't got to the vegetarian stage yet, though I would tend to try and do that. But you need to know what you're doing when you're cutting up the animals. And there are basic jobs like cleaning up and sweeping and all the rest. And it is a tightly controlled industry, obviously, because the health issues are enormous. But we also have a huge community in the southeast west of Ireland, down around the town of Gort in Clare, where it's a huge Brazilian community. Now
Right.
they're migrants who come in to work. And we had a nice story the other day, just as an aside about migrants. I didn't even know this happened, but we on the fishing boats on the west coast of Ireland, some of those boats are crewed by fishermen from Ghana.
Cool.
And these guys, because the fleets weren't allowed to go out because of coronavirus, that's changing a little bit, but they were stuck in port, and conditions were a bit rough. They had nothing to do. They didn't have proper washing facilities. Now, the local Gaelic football club felt sorry for them and decided they would look after them. So they've set up in the clubhouse, they set up washing facilities for their clothes. And these big, strong Ghanaian guys are now playing Gaelic football down there. And there was a clip on the other night. Now, they'd never seen the game before, but they clearly are talented guys. And it was just wonderful to see. The local club had actually bought them tops so that they were kind of kitted out properly. And I think it's one of the nice examples. I remember when the migration group in CETAR set up first, we were in Berlin and looking at some of the really nice stories of Berliners helping out, like allowing migrants to use the washing machines one day a week and, meeting the family. So there's we tend sometimes maybe a little bit too much focus on the negative, but there are some nice stories as well.
Well, it seems to be it's a balance, isn't it? If people are here and they're not working, it causes a problem. Here and they're
Yes.
taking too much salary, claiming too much benefit, there's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a very fragile idea. And again, it gets us back to social rank. If we look at, say, Europe and America, in those troubled times when muscles are needed, we are less racist and nasty. Come on in, my brother.
Yes.
When there is competition for the scarce resource of housing or money or wages or jobs or food or anything else, then that accentuates the xenophobia. Get to the back of the line. It's my
Yeah.
country, my town. I'm this, I'm that. And then we have this.
Yeah.
So you have
Yeah.
this cycle of niceness and nastiness which goes through.
Yeah, and my own grandfather was a senior policeman in Ireland and had to emigrate to the UK in the late 1930s. And the only job he could get was at the Qualcast factory in Derby, and he was a night watchman. That was the only job he could get. Now, as it happened, some of the local guys discovered that he knew how to do accounts, so they would come and ask him to help with their wages. And gradually it got to the point where all the workers were coming for help. And eventually the company, who Qualcomm were a very good employer, they moved him up to the payroll office. And eventually he did reasonably well. He never made a fortune, but he did okay.
Now, don't be offended, Joe. I'm getting a bit of Shawshank on this. I'm just feeling that. Don't be offended. Don't be offended.
Yeah. Yes, indeed, yeah. So yeah, generally it's the lockdown of the three counties caused a lot of stress in those areas, a lot of sympathy, because I had lived in County Offaly for about 11 years.
Yeah.
So people were just getting back on their feet when they got knocked back. And as I said, I don't think there is a kickback against migrants in this case, but they are in the center of this, and they're also at risk.
But also it crosses over with another big topic. We've had slavery this summer, we've had oppression this summer, but also we've got modern slavery. So we're talking about incoming migrants who are being provided for socially. There are deliberate workers coming in to do very specific tasks. Then we have the nasty side, which we haven't mentioned today, and I'm going to use the phrase trafficked workers coming in hideous dormitory conditions, often in rural communities, and it's meat and it's veg processing. And then COVID has really been, certainly in the UK, it's been an exposer of that. We had our textile workers in Leicester, and the infection rates and the R rate within communities and all sorts of things through the roof. That's not those people. That's the people who are designing the whole process and paying for the whole thing, setting up various ratios to make the most money that they can. And that's brutal. That is brutal. So in a way, COVID is shining a light on this. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, it is. It's a curious thing. There's a debate here, I'm sure you have it in the UK as well, about the role of the police in all of this. So the police here now have new powers, to look into all sorts of corners to make sure people aren't breaking the rules. Now, it's not as strong as you might see in France or Spain, but people here are concerned that the police now are looking. So they are uncovering things that they might not have had they not been, had the COVID thing not happened. And absolutely, I mean, we one of the biggest sources of potential infection here is, large parties. And while it clearly does generally focus on younger people, and there have been some pretty bad instances. I've seen a report in a UK paper about one somewhere in England as well, where they pretty much destroyed a neighbourhood, 400
Bournemouth
kids
Beach, defecating in burger boxes. Yes.
Oh, lovely. Like, at least they use the boxes. I suppose that's good. But
such great parents they have.
Yeah, but it's so the police. I actually had to ring our local police here because there was a party going on in a pub opposite us here, and they were clearly in breach of the rules. I felt really bad because I wouldn't have grown up in an environment where you'd feel like you'd ring the police to report on people. But when I spoke to the policeman, he was extremely grateful. He said, "No, we really need people to tell us if they see things." And he said, "We'll go along. If they're fine, they're fine. If they're not, we'll do something about it."
Covered a lot of ground today. Anyway, takeaway thoughts in terms of lockdown, meat and migrants. What's your overall punchline?
I think, again, as we just said there, I think there is a light being shone in the meat industry now, and then it is highlighted. There is an awareness that the current system of looking after refugees or asylum seekers in this country is not fit for purpose, and this may actually be an impetus to change that. I do worry that, like all governments, like they're borrowing furiously to pay for everything.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure, that can't last forever.
And here we go. In recession, we're going to get more discrimination. When there's a scarcity of jobs, it's locals first, others to the back. And we haven't quite got those war conditions of we need that muscle, help us. But it seems also that there is this developed Europe idea of I'm being rude here, I'm too good for that job, and therefore that job becomes tradable. Joe, thank you so much, mate. Good luck with the cycling, good luck with accessing fresh meat and pushing for migrants' rights. I know you've been a great spokesman for the issue. You've stood up and shone out for that, so thank you very much. Thank you, viewers, for following this debate. There'll be another one pretty soon. Thanks all. See you next time. See ya.
Thank you. Thank you.